This video is a short summary of the periodic order management and covers specifically the order up to model. In order to apply the order up to model for a certain good, a few assumptions have to be made. First, the demand of the products has to be random but still relatively constant over time. Therefore, there is no overall upwards or downwards trend or seasonality to be observed. In addition, the interval in which we order is fixed and it is assumed that we order in every period. Lastly, our lead time needs to be constant. Let's have a look at an example to illustrate the calculations and the thought process of this model. Let's say we analyze the forecasted data of a small retailer in order to calculate the target inventory level. In this spreadsheet, we have given the demand for toilet paper, which, if it is not currently pandemic season, fulfills the aforementioned requirements for applying the order up to model. Additionally, we know that the lead time is 3 periods and the review period is 1 period. Also, the order cost for holding and overage as well as the sale price are given. Before beginning with the calculations, we first have to make sure that the periods of the lead time and the review period are in the same unit, for example, in weeks. For the calculations of the target inventory level, we have to obtain the average demand and the standard deviation. For the average demand, we use the Excel formula average and apply it on the demand. To obtain the standard deviation, we again use an Excel formula that directly calculates the standard deviation of our demand. In the case of our retailer, the average demand for toilet paper overall is 52 and the standard deviation is 8.08. For the next step, there are two options. In option 1, the retailer sets a fixed service level. The service level represents the percentage of demand that he wants for sure to be fulfilled by not running out of stock. In option 2, he can use the inventory cost structure for the goods by leveraging the critical ratio to determine the service level. In our case, the retailer decides to go for the second option. Thus, we calculate the critical ratio by dividing underage costs by the sum of the underage and overage costs. This leaves us with a critical ratio of 95%. Using this result, the corresponding Z value can be calculated by applying the Excel formula norm as inv. In a final step, the target inventory level can be calculated by using the displayed formula. After all these calculations, we now have our final result. The target inventory level for toilet paper of this specific retailer is 235. Now we use those 235 and the same demand from the previous calculation to simulate a scenario for the considered periods. Also, for the sake of this example, we assume that the beginning inventory consists of 200 units. Let's start a simulation. First, we look at the pipeline inventory. This is the sum of the order quantities that had been placed in the past but due to the lead time have not arrived yet. For period 1, it is assumed to be 0. As prior to this period, no orders have been placed. Next, we have the inventory position, which is the sum of the inventory at the beginning of the period and the pipeline inventory. The order quantity depicts the difference between the target inventory level and the inventory position. When using Excel, be aware that the target inventory level is a fixed value. Thus, the $sign needs to be added in the formula. The orders received is the order quantity that has been placed X of periods ago and arrives in the current period. In our example, the lead time is 3 periods, so our first order that we place in period 1 will arrive in period 4. The inventory that remains at the end of the period consists of the sum of the beginning inventory and the orders received minus the actual demand of that period. In our example, we are left with 155. Now we have the simulations of the first period. Let's continue with the second one. For the subsequent periods, the beginning inventory equals the ending inventory of the previous period. Now we just apply the formulas above to this period. But we need to highlight special cases in the pipeline inventory and the orders received. The pipeline inventory, as mentioned before, reflects the orders we placed in the past within the lead time period. So, in period 3, the pipeline inventory is the sum of the order quantities in period 1 and 2. In period 4, we can start applying the Excel formula sum, which allows us to make the calculations automatic for the following periods. Also, in period 4, the orders we placed in the first period have finally arrived. Therefore, the orders received are now 35. The following periods can be simulated by simply copying the formulas down. This gives us a simulation of the development of the inventory during the considered period. After using the order up to model practically, we now want to have a look at how different factors can affect the model and the inventory. First, as it is displayed in this graphic, it is important to notice that a higher service level requires higher inventory, which in the end also means higher safety stock. Also, inventory level is additionally influenced by the lead time. In particular, the higher the lead time, the higher the inventory level. Now that we have had a closer look at the order up to model, it is time to compare and differentiate it with another model that is also used for inventory with uncertain future demand. It is called the news vendor model. While the basis of both models is the same, there do exist some differences. Firstly, the news vendor model is specially designed to focus on perishable goods that only last for one period, whereas in the order up to model, the goods are theoretically unperishable. In the order up to model, this would correspond with setting the inventory at the beginning of a period back to 0 instead of being equal to the end inventory of the previous period. Furthermore, in the news vendor model, demand only occurs after the goods have been replenished, since there is no inventory at the beginning of a period. As we have seen in our example before, in the order up to model, demand is not coupled to replenishment. Lastly, there are some computational adjustments we have to make if we want to apply the news vendor model, since there is no review period. In order to calculate the target inventory level, we need to use the displayed formula. For the end of this video, we prepared a formula cheat sheet in which you find all the important formulas we used in the calculations of our example.